calling the regular meeting for February 7th of the Romeo Planning Commission to order. Start with roll call.
Stegner?
Here.
Fowler?
Here.
Luther? Hall?
Here.
Grandstaff?
Here.
Jovovich?
Here.
Guzmano? No. Mr. Webb?
Here.
Okay, approval of the minutes. Anybody want to make any changes to the minutes from last meeting, or?
I think we should add, maybe call it old business. It was questioned as to whether or not paid members could be on this board, and Mark was going, the attorney was going to give us some information, so if we could add that under, what do you want to call it, old business or whatever, to find out.
For tonight's agenda.
For tonight's agenda.
Okay.
I'd like to add something too.
Okay.
Also, the fence ordinance within residential communities.
Okay, fence. Fence ordinance and fence. And paid. Well, we know how that one was resolved.
And one last thing. Can we move number 3 up to number 1?
Sure. That's in yours, and we can't do that.
I'd like to nominate Mr. Grandstaff as your vice chair.
Okay, we haven't approved the minutes.
Oh, okay.
So, somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes in January 10th.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Nays, all opposed. Anybody opposed? We skipped that last week, or last month. Nobody's opposed. Okay. Okay, this is the public forum of our monthly show. Anybody want to say anything? Go ahead, Catherine.
Good evening. You all know, Catherine Traffic Clerk. I'm here to talk about, that I'm no longer a member of the Planning Commission due to the state Michigan statute that elected officials besides the ex officio cannot serve on a board and be an elected paid member of the Village of Romeo. Chair Stegner, have you accepted my resignation?
I haven't seen it.
Okay, well, I know you were made aware of it, but okay.
Yeah.
When you receive it officially. I'm also here to talk about the Macomb County Citizen Planner Program that the county is hosting. It's coming up starting in March. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, a 7-week course. One scholarship is being provided to one member of every planning commission within Macomb County. Other candidates would be considered being paid for by the village if interested. And this is a course that would overlook, part of the items being looked at would be understanding the planning and zoning context, planning for your future of your community, implement the plan and zoning, making zoning decisions, using innovative planning and zoning, and successfully filling your role as a planning commission member. So I would like to take any interested parties. If you're interested, please contact me in the office. But I would highly recommend at least starting with the chair.
What's the name of the program again?
The Macomb County Citizen Planner Program, and it's brought to you by Michigan State University Extension. And these classes, I believe, are at the Macomb County MSU Extension office on Dunham Road in Clinton Township. They start March 21st, and they go once a week and through May 2nd.
The village is paying for it?
Well, we have one scholarship provided by the county, and if there are interested parties, we'll look into covering it for other members that are interested. So just wanted to give you an update. I do have a few flyers here, and I do have a contact person that I would have to let them know before registration closes, which I'm not sure when registration closes, but the class does start again March 21st, and it is a 7-week commitment once a week.
And where's the course held at?
The MSU Extension office on Dunham Road, Clinton Township. So it's by some of the county buildings down there.
So what time of day is it?
6 to 9 p.m. And I would like, yeah, if you can contact me in the office, because we would want the scholarship to go.
Can you pass out the flyers?
Yep, I just have 3 copies right now, but I can make
okay.
more. If you guys come to the office. Oops. I think we only have 1 citizen planner amongst you guys. Is that correct, Lisa?
I
So
don't
I'll
know
make
if
sure I
anybody
make-
else is or not, I know I am.
Okay, we only have 1 citizen planner on the board right now. So just wanted to let you guys aware of that. If somebody, or if you can contact me as soon as you can, so we can decide who's going. So we don't want the scholarship to go to waste.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to the agenda, and Mr. Fowler would like to move 3
Yes, I'd like
to
to
the top,
nominate Mr. Bill Grandstaff as your vice chair.
okay? We need a second, I'll
You
second
second.
it. Okay? Is this something you're
Yes,
interested
yeah,
in?
let's say it.
You'll
Yeah.
you'll accept that? So, okay.
Forced, you're forced in these things, all right? It's forced crew, I think.
So he's been nominated, so I make a motion that we go ahead and vote for Mr. Grandstaff. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Nobody?
And second, either the vice chair or the chair, take Ms. Trapp up on this this scholarship offer here. One of you two?
Well, I am interested, but I gotta look at some
Okay.
stuff.
Yep, yeah, you
Yeah.
guys
I
can
may
let me
not
know
be
when
able to,
you
the
figure out your
7-week
schedule.
thing is a
That
problem.
way you guys can report
Yeah.
back to
Yeah.
us and let us know what's
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah,
That is the commitment.
I've got the dates here, and I
Okay.
want to look at it.
That's great.
It would be a good thing to do. Anyway, so are we gonna vote on a secretary as well?
Ms. Trapp indicated that the secretary has to be a board member? Is that
Has to come from the planning commission.
Is that correct, Mr. Clark?
I'd have to look at that.
Because I know Marion was secretary for a
She
while.
was recording secretary. That's different than the planning commission secretary.
I did not know that was gonna be an issue. I don't have a copy, I apologize, of your agenda.
Okay,
Well, it is in the ordinances.
okay. So,
I mean, I have a copy of it here.
And I have my ordinance book as well, so if you wanna talk about something else, and I'll look at this while you're...
Oh, geez, I should
does
tell
the vice chair want double duty? Or Lisa? Yeah,
No, thank you.
new lady on the block.
32, Mark.
3233.
Is it
The
32?
planning commission shall elect
No.
a chairperson, chairperson pro tempore, and a secretary from its members.
Right.
Okay.
So we did the vice chair in case secretary was available.
Glasses do suck. Okay. Okay, so, secretary.
How about who's ever missing?
Yeah, who's that?
Luther,
Yeah.
Luzano.
Scott has impeccable handwriting.
Yeah.
Not really.
Yeah.
They don't have to say so. They can throw their name in there.
Well, it's not gonna be me.
Deciding, you say?
I'm just saying nobody wants to.
Yeah.
Cindy, you can't never miss, all right?
I can, I'll do it, yeah. If you want to know, I will do it.
Make a motion?
Make a motion, go ahead.
All right, second?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion, fine.
Good job, Lisa.
Yeah, I seconded it apparently through us.
Way to fall on that blade.
Okay, so secretary, follow-up guy, and what is the Latin for that? There's a good Latin phrase for that. The placeholder in Latin. Anyway, okay. Second order of business is the Kemp Building and Development Company, site plan review. This was approved by us a year ago, but it's lapsed. So we have to reapprove it. And I understand it's not changed at all. Should somebody be here from their group, or, that's not necessary?
Well,
they were already
I have just, since it's approved and it's kind of lapsed and we're looking at it again, Mr. Clark, I can ask you this question. Is there any way, like, across the street from this property, there, L and those companies have that egress to those other buildings over there? Is there any way we can, like, require or ask this person to do the same thing on this side of the trail?
Well, you can ask them, the site plan, if it's subject to review, then you can approve it as presented, or if you want changes made to it, then you can have the property owner make the changes, but you have to follow your site plan approval process that's provided in the ordinance as far as the various points that have to be met. So you can, I don't know, if you're asking, can you require them to acquire other property? I don't think you can do that, but.
Well, they own the property. I mean, but I'm just, you know, people coming from the village, walking down the trail, I know a lot of people use the ones across the street to access those industrial buildings. Instead of walking all the way down to Powell Road and coming into them, they can use that egress and get to the buildings. And I'm looking at this on this side of the trails the same way, in the same situation. And
Are you talking about that little bridge that goes
Yes.
from the trail to?
Yes.
Okay.
And which is, it's, you know, even our local sheriffs use it, they park their stuffs right there in that little shed. But it's convenient for the people walking from the village to get to those light industrial buildings. And it'll be the same thing on this side of the trail. I didn't see anything on here, and I think if we can mention that to him, he might work with us on it.
If it's part of the site plan review process, you can do that.
So we
You
can make that part of this
you-
process.
You can require modifications to the site plan, but I would recommend that you, because if it's lapsed, it's not a currently approved site plan. It was approved at one time. It has a shelf life. I think under the ordinance it's a year, but I could be mistaken about that. Again, I wasn't anticipating having to address this, but, so you can ask that the site plan be resubmitted, and if you do that, you have the right to do that, but I think my recommendation would be you grant the property owner the courtesy to attend and respond and say, yes, this is a good idea, or no, we shouldn't have to do this, and this is why, so that the plan as revised or amended gets full consideration.
Okay, to have him present at the place in order to.
Well,
Now,
if
that's
you're gonna require something that's not on the plan, I just think you wanna have the property owner present to be able to address it. It may be appropriate, the property owner may think it's inappropriate, and have reasons why the property owner doesn't wanna do it. I think you have to, again, because it's not currently approved, you have to go through the whole process that's specified in your ordinance.
And what does anybody else think here? I mean, that was just my thought. The accessibility of this industrial complex.
And the property owner wouldn't have to be here, but if you're considering requiring changes before you'll approve it, I would recommend you have the property owner here so that the property owner can address what changes you want made.
Yeah, just think it'd be a great idea. And if this is the opportunity that we can present this before anything happens, this is the time to do it.
Well, I don't know why they let this lapse, but it has been a year. And I don't know, are they moving forward now with everything? And so if.
Because they've been busy on Parrot Court building Land's End and all those buildings, so
if
now
we-
this is their next phase.
So if we approve this with qualifications that you're interested in, then I think that'll delay them once again. I don't see what you want as any
No
big deal
Yeah.
that we couldn't approve this and then say, hey, we like to, could you add a little thing afterwards?
I agree.
Well, but if you approve it, you can't then later say, yes, we approved it, but by the way, when you come for your building permit, if you don't have this.
No, I'm
done-
not suggesting that.
Well, but that would be
Yeah.
the effect. If it's approved, it's approved.
So should the
Right.
steps be, he
Yes,
comes in,
I agree.
or he comes in and meets with Ms. Trapp and discuss this, or come back to this board?
You have
with
to,
modifications.
you have to go through your approval process.
Okay.
You can't short circuit it or circumvent it. The process is laid out in the ordinance, and you need to follow it. That's my recommendation.
What do you guys think? I mean, let's prove it as it is, or?
What do you want to change here?
I'd just like to add an egress from the trail to these projects, this area. like across, just east of there, there's a little bridge trail that it's egress for the light industrial buildings all over there by Sharp, L&L, McLean, all those buildings. So people that actually come down the trail, if they live in the village or the trailer park or something like that, they can walk to work. Instead of them walking all the way to Powell Road and walking in to those complexes, they actually use that bridge there. So I'm thinking the same thing on this side of the trail. Just any type of egress to allow whomever's coming from the village accessibility to this area instead of coming all the way down to Powell and then coming back in. Because we have a lot of walking traffic that works out here on Powell Road. That's all. It was just a thought. If you guys don't think it's a good idea,
I think
Well,
it's
I
a good
think it's a
idea.
good idea, I just don't want to slow down.
yeah, we don't want to slow them down, but is there,
Approval
and
process.
Mr. Clark indicated that if we approve this as it is, then we can't go back and,
Well,
Close the barn door.
You could ask them.
Well, that's
but
what
you
I'm
can't-
saying.
You can ask them, but you can't, if they say no, you don't have any.
then that's true.
Right.
You don't have any leverage. Your leverage is to, within the bounds of the law and the ordinance, to require the site plan to contain the elements you want it to contain.
Mr. Clark,
Yes.
when, all right, so this is all split out and this is a complete site plan, but does each individual parcel, when they submit for a building, do they have to provide a site plan showing how their building is going to affect the engineering and everything on the property?
Yes.
Well, could they add the egress then, at that time when they submitted that site plan?
It is in engineering review right now.
Okay.
And they can, but I don't know that you have the ability to force
Right,
them to
Right
do
here.
it.
right.
But you could request it.
Yeah, that's the
At the
biggest parcel,
time.
so
Okay.
it would be,
Your time,
Right
your time
Right here on
to
that.
include all the elements in the
Yeah.
site plan that you want
I think it's a good
included is when you
Because we're
approve
always
the site.
You're
walking.
right, right, I know.
So the building, so say a company was going on Unit 11 and they submitted a site plan. Could you suggest to them at the time that they possibly add the
Sure,
egress?
sure, but
Okay.
you just don't have any ability to require it.
Right, you could request it, but
Absolutely.
not require.
Sure.
Okay.
I was looking at parcel 2, unit 8, that's the biggest lot. And right there at that line would be a great egress. Because you got the circle drive right there, accessibility. That way it's not hindering any of the other individual properties. And at least, that's what I was looking at. So right there off the Combe Trail, there's the biggest,
You're saying that right on the border of Unit 9 and Unit 8.
yes, or right there basically in that line.
Yeah,
Right, so this looks like it's gonna be available space anyway, depending on what type of development goes on parcel 2, unit 8. But then that doesn't take away from any of the other unit square footages. So, Mr. Clark explained that if we approve this as it is, then we can't go back and say, can you do this? So we.
No, you can ask them, you can't require it. You can't administratively amend the site plan.
So we can ask them, what do you think?
Yeah, you can ask him.
I-
Nothing beats a failure but a try, right?
Well, Cindy here says that they probably would
They're-
have no problem
They are probably
if we approve
our
this.
best company that we work for.
So
or
they-
that bring
they're willing to
business
work
into
with
our
us
village.
to-
They will, yeah, they
Okay.
do
So.
whatever we would
if we-
require.
Not leverage or anything, but
Yeah, I really believe that.
Okay.
I believe that they would.
So who's the go-between? Ms. Trapp? Cool. So we would instruct Mrs. Trapp to try to make this happen?
Yes,
Yes.
it's under review, well, like I said, it's through, it's in engineering review right now,
Okay.
so I'd have to speak with the owners of the company.
Okay. Yeah,
Mr. Kemp?
yeah. This spot right here.
Like a footprint you're talking about?
Yeah, same path as the other one's right next to it. But this is the biggest parcel, I'm looking into these others. Accessible, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you want to
You
leave
wanna
that with
leave
your
this?
markings.
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to go ahead and approve this?
Yes,
Okay, somebody want to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Yeah, the motion would be to approve the plan as is with stipulations of Ms. Trapp talking with Kemp to see if we can get them to construct an egress on the print that I showed you. How's that sound?
Well, we're not, it's not, approval is not dependent on that, though.
Correct, right, Mr. Clark?
Again, whatever you approve is what you can require of them. And whatever's approved, you can't require administratively something more. You can request it,
Yeah.
but they have the right to rely on the
Okay,
approved
so
site plan.
we can request it then.
Yeah, okay.
But then if they turn us down and say, no, I don't want to do anything with it, then that's on them.
Okay, so that passed, the motion passed.
Okay.
Do we say nays?
No, not yet, you haven't.
Okay, all opposed? Anybody opposed? Okay. So it's unanimous. All right, next is the Motor City Mobile Pit Stop Incorporated lock joining, which is, that's the Shell station, right?
Right on the corner
Yeah, right on the corner.
of 32 and North Main.
I looked this up now. Is there anything, we can just say yay or nay, right? Or what do we have to do? I mean, I'm kind of confused about this one. And the website, the village website's down.
Right, it's been attacked by viruses, we're fixing it right now.
Yeah?
Yes, we
That
had 18
stinks.
infected files on the website,
18?
18 infected files.
Wow.
Do they want to join these lots for future sale?
No,
Other
this
property?
is being directed by the state of Michigan to assessing departments, and Bruce Township is the assessing department for this particular group of parcels, and for the way taxes are being, if I'm explaining this right, Lisa, I know you might be familiar with this. The way if, one person owns multiple parcels, the way it's being taxed is starting to get a little cumbersome for the state, so by combining all the parcels and just having one property owner that owns all the parcels have one parcel ID, state of Michigan can establish their taxes better and help out with the assessing, with the tax rolls for the assessing, the respective assessing department.
My question is that at one time, there were all different types of buildings on this one, or not, 5 different lots. So, once we join them all together, once they join them all together, then it's just one lot that they can sell,
Correct.
correct?
And then, yeah, plus it'll make it easier for them to sell.
Okay.
It would be more difficult to sell 5 parcels.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to accept it as.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
So now Bruce Township will submit that to the county.
Okay, so you want to talk about fence ordinance?
Yes, just our local fence ordinance here. As you see from the handout that I gave you, just to prevent this from happening anywhere else in the village. Because at this point, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Clark, you don't. I have currently some concrete blocks down there at my end of the village, Dickinson Street. And the ordinance doesn't stipulate on what type of material can be used. And as you see from the letter from Christine, is that it doesn't specify the exact material that can be used. The previous administration didn't allow it because of the, on our ordinance, they use the part of its community effect, the way it looks. As you see from some of the ordinance I provided, in the general interest of the public safety, comfort, convenience, and protection of property values. So that's one of the reasons the previous administration kept denying the application. Well, this application has been accepted now, and what we want to make sure, what I want to make sure is that this does not happen anyplace else in residential areas in the village. Because it can happen up on Benjamin Street right now, on Tilson, Bailey, anywhere. Somebody wants to put concrete blocks down, they can. And it does take away from the aesthetics and the values of your house. Nobody wants to buy anything when this highway dividers are lining the property line. So at this point, I'm a sacrificial lamb here, but I want to make sure that this doesn't happen anyplace else in residential communities in the village. So we need to clarify our fence specifications to make sure it does not include this product. Is that about it, Mr. Clark?
That's not for me to say, other than
Can I-
I will affirm that the ordinance presently does not identify materials.
Okay,
But
that's
the
good.
nuances, I'll leave that up to your discussion and what you may want to recommend or not recommend to the council. But it does not, the particular ordinance provision does not distinguish between or among materials. It
So-
talks about fences and barriers.
So was my question, Mr. Clark, so this actually can be done anyplace else in the village? According to,
If it meets the requirements of the ordinance, yes.
okay. And that's is what we want to address here, is to make sure that it does not happen anyplace else in our village. So, however, the verbiage is that we need to construct to go to the council, so the council can review this and pass this. This is what we're here for right now at this point. This is why I added this.
So we just need a line about permissible materials for barriers, right? Is that,
Well, just something basically saying, no. No concrete blocks, cement blocks.
right,
Because the way that Christine wrote it was that they are not over 4 foot tall, and our ordinance does not dictate what material fence should be made out of.
Mr. Clark,
Yes.
is this the code of ordinances or the zoning ordinance that this is from?
I'm looking as we speak. It's in, I think, if you have the same,
I have-
I think it's in code.
I think it's under, it's under chapter 6, if you have your code book, it's section 6-191.
Yep, they got it. So the last page on Lisa.
Well, I've got
Section-
but what I'm asking is, this is the zoning ordinance, this is a code. So is this from the code of ordinances or from the zoning ordinance?
I don't know what you have, I'll just tell you what I have. And in your municipal code book, there is a standalone section entitled Buildings and Building Regulations. And it is in that section 6-191. And it talks about no fence or wall shall be erected, maintained, or permitted in the village except the following, and then it gives the requirements. So I don't think it's in your zoning ordinance. I think it's in your what I would call your regular ordinance book. Now, your zoning ordinance is part of your regular ordinance book as well, but I don't think this particular provision regarding fences appears in the zoning ordinance.
Well, that's my question,
on my-
does the planning
page-
commission,
Sorry.
does the planning commission regulate code of ordinances or just zoning ordinances?
You can make recommendations
Okay.
regarding ordinances, and you're only a recommending body when it comes to that. And so I think it would be appropriate if you choose, I don't think you're required, but if you choose to make a recommendation to the council as to a modification of an ordinance, I tend to look at those things more broadly than narrowly, because planning touches a lot of different aspects, not only of people's lives, but of their property, that if you see something that you think might be appropriate, I think you can make a recommendation, but you're not required to, and the council isn't bound by what you might recommend.
Mark, in our zoning ordinance on page 5, section 3.10, fences, location, height, and construction of fences in all residential and non-residential zoning districts shall conform to the requirements of the village fence ordinance number 3, 17.
which I think is the section 6-191.
Correct. You have a copy of that.
And I emphasize think. I can't say certainly or with certainty that one number represents the same thing, but I believe, Mr. Grandstaff, the portion you quoted, the reference is to Article 5 offenses under Section 6 of the village's regular ordinances.
Okay.
I know there are a lot of different numerations being bandied about, but I feel comfortable that the reference in the zoning ordinance is to the ordinance about which I'm speaking.
Section 6191. It's just something that we can act on tonight or till our next meeting, and then come up with the right verbiage. That, like I said, it doesn't need to happen in any other residential community here within our village, period. Because we know that the junior high school is going down, they're moving. They're telling somebody might come in here and throw these blocks up all around there. You gotta look at them on Church Street, Bailey. It can happen.
Okay, well, verbiage.
We can table it?
We can table it, but I wanna, do you wanna work, I mean, you're the construction person.
Yeah.
You know materials and all of that, so,
Well, I'm going to abstain from voting on this thing because it's right next to my property.
oh,
And currently I have so I have an ongoing thing with the owner here. So
oh geez.
I will abstain, but like I said, I just want to make sure it doesn't happen anyplace else within our residential community here in the village. And the way that it's open right now, it can happen.
When did these get put up?
It's been a while ago. The previous administration did not allow it. He kept turning down his permits, so we were going to court for it. They were in litigation, and the new administration allowed the permit.
Follow the ordinance,
I beg your pardon?
follow the ordinance.
All right, I'll make a motion that we table discussion on this and come up with the appropriate verbiage or suggestion before our next meeting to send up to the council. All in favor?
I'll abstain.
All opposed? I know,
Okay,
Okay,
okay.
all opposed, okay.
and who seconded that?
I did.
Okay, so we added to a discussion about paid employees not being on this commission as for Mr. Grandstaff.
This was a point of contention, and I did not know if Mark was going to be here. I think with Mr. Trapp sitting out there, I think my question has been answered. Am I assuming that what had been said last month is correct and according to the ordinance?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
The reason Ms. Trapp is not able to serve is because under state law and your planning commission ordinance, there are appointments made by the council. You have a board of, I believe, 9, 1 ex officio, and 8 other members. And the ordinance and state law says, except for, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, but it'll address the point, except for the ex officio member, no other members shall be either elected or employees of the municipality. And so when Ms. Trapp was elected clerk, and you have an ex officio member, who I believe presently is Mr. Fowler, then the ordinance and the state statute disqualify Ms. Trapp to sit because she was elected as the clerk.
I did explain that too when I spoke up in public forum, because I knew what a irritant this was for the board.
I want to make sure that we're legal in what we're doing. It
I'm
wasn't
sure you
in- You know, it wasn't in any way meant to be other than a question left over from last month that I felt we should address.
It's been addressed.
Thank you.
It's in the Romeo ordinances as well. Okay, Mr. Clark, you're here for none of this, really. You're here about the sign, industrial sign ordinance, correct?
Well, that's what I thought.
The clock's still on, right?
So you have questions or directions or?
Well, I don't have questions. I just have, I guess, a word or two of encouragement is the way I would perhaps present it. I did review the minutes of your meeting on January the 10th, and I noticed there was an admonition to me that I was going to review the sign ordinance and make suggestions as to, I guess, the square footage. My thought is, which I'm more than willing to do, but I'm not on the planning commission. I'm not a community planner or a municipal planner. And your function as the planning commission is to review site plans and make recommendations to the council and do other things that are provided in the ordinance. And so my understanding, and let me know if I'm incorrect about this, is there's some concern about the signage in the industrial area, particularly buildings that run, I'm thinking of on 33 Mile Road, buildings that run north and south, and 33 Mile Road runs east and west. And so how do people, if you're driving west, it might be okay to see because they're on the south side of the road, but if you're driving east, you have to look over your shoulder to see who's there, what's there. So if the issue is, well, let's have some type of pylon or stanchion sign, let's have something on the road that identifies who's in the buildings or building, I think that's wholly appropriate. It makes sense to me. So then the question becomes, do you reallocate, if you will, the current permissible signage that can be attached to the building and say, okay, 50% can be on the building, 50% on the stanchion or the pylon, the roadside sign, or do you do it on the basis of square footage, or do you expand? Do you say, well, if we're going to have the square footage on the road, we don't want these ginormous signs, or we want a sufficient amount of signage at the road, but we still need some on the buildings. And so what I would suggest is that you come up with the allocation, that you decide, yes, we need more square footage, and how are you going to do it? Is it going to be based on how big the building is, or is it going to, no matter how big the building is and how many units it has, there's a pylon or stanchion roadside sign has so many square footage, so many square feet attributable to how many units. I think those are things that I would encourage you to work out what you think is reasonable based on what you do as the planning commission. And once you come to an agreement on that, if you do, with some specificity, I would then make the recommendation to the village council. I don't encourage you to say, we think there should be a roadside sign and still signage attached to the building, and you, village council, you ascribe the numbers to it. The council can do that, but the council isn't the planning commission, you are. And you have the ability to influence, have the community, whether it's industrial, residential, commercial, you have the ability to influence what the community looks like. And so and based on your good judgment, you may have to do some research, talk to some people, look at what other communities are doing. However you feel it's appropriate to come up with the information, and then make my encouragement to you is to make a specific recommendation to the village council, as opposed to having the village council say, well, this might be a good idea, but we don't know what it should be. I think my encouragement to you is you recommend to them what you think it should be. And they can accept your recommendation, they can modify it, they can reject it. But I think you know how you as a planning commission want the community to look. And that's what I would suggest that you recommend to the village council.
In other words, the ball's back in our court.
Well, it doesn't have to be, but I think you're better served,
Yeah.
and I think the village is better served if you wrestle with that issue. And keeping in mind, you're only recommending, the village council might say, oh, we don't want those numbers. Those numbers are way out of whack. It's not gonna appear appropriately, so you don't have any assurance, but you're better equipped to make those finer distinctions than the village council is.
Well, Mr. Grandstaff had an excellent idea at the last meeting we had because the way that the sign ordinance read, it complied with both the commercial and the industrial. And the recommendation he made was to separate the commercial, which should be within the village, from that industrial, so we could do the condominium type sign out there on the industrial part. So you said that's something that we need to write up and suggest that to the,
Well, you don't
off that ordinance?
necessarily need to write it up.
Well-
If you, I could provide to you examples of ordinances that address it, but rather than you say to the village council, we think there should be a roadside sign, I call them pylon or stanchion signs, condominium is a good description as well, sign, and then something else on the building, and here council revise the ordinance, and have them fill in the blanks as to numbers and height and width, and I encourage you to make those recommendations. Make those specific items part of your recommendation to the council, as opposed to fill in the blank, kind of a presentation to the council. Again, you don't have to do this. I'm making a suggestion to you, because the council ultimately is responsible for adopting ordinances, repealing ordinances, amending ordinances. You're a recommending body in that regard, but I think that you're better suited and more well equipped to make those specific recommendations than the council is to decide that itself.
So I'm going to suggest that we form a committee within the commission here to meet and discuss this stuff, do some research. I'm happy to be on any committee. We can meet at the village hall there. There's plenty of nice space upstairs. Do a little research. I was going to bring this up eventually, but I don't think there's enough electronic communication between the commission. I'm always waiting for a pile of papers every month to find out what's going on.
I had the wrong phone number, sorry.
Oh, no, that's not your fault.
I kept getting the fax line.
No, that's not. But I'll talk to Cindy about that. But does anybody want to be on a little committee with me?
Depends on the days.
Pardon?
It depends on the days and the time.
Well, we can accommodate you. I mean, you got that little nugget of information from your planner.
And one of the things I would suggest that you think about when you're having your research and deliberation and your study sessions is to remember that the example I gave, the property out on 33 Mile Road, and I think the owner of one of those pieces was the person who came to your January meeting, is to just keep in mind to try not to make recommendations based on specific sites.
Right.
Even though that's what prompts it, and it's always gonna be somebody with a particular need that's gonna prompt or raise the issue, and that's appropriate. But to remember, whatever you recommend, it's gonna be district-wide. So if it's industrial, it's gonna be the whole industrial area. If it's commercial, it's gonna be the whole commercial area. You're not making recommendations for specific sites. And sometimes that kind of gets lost, because you get oriented toward, well, here's a problem on this site, we have to solve the problem. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be problem solvers, you should be, but we have to solve the problem, and you step out of the frying pan and right into the fire. So I just offer that as a general suggestion.
Okay, so it depends on the day, is that what you're saying? All right, well, I'll be in touch, we'll figure it out.
Okay.
We can meet over at the village.
So you got you?
Yeah,
3?
yeah, we'll try and get that done soon too.
And you can just let us know, and it's okay if we show up.
Oh, you wanna be in?
Whenever
Okay,
they got
sure.
their meetings?
Well, you should, if you're going to, if you're just gonna research, that's fine, but if you're gonna deliberate and discuss toward a decision among yourselves, then you need to post it as a public meeting.
That's-
You wanna err on the side of posting and openness as opposed to not doing so.
So anything less than a quorum?
Well, you can have a quorum, but you should even post for subcommittees. I'm just a big fan of, you want to err on the side of having too many people know as opposed to not having anybody know.
That's good.
All right, well, we'll talk about exactly what we're gonna do, maybe your number. Okay, anything else? Anybody
We
wanna
just
add?
need to, just, the annual report, I just want everybody to take a look at.
Okay, has everybody looked at the annual report? Anybody have questions, suggestions? We don't have to approve this, right? No, of course not.
I just need to.
Okay.
That's all. I put it
Everybody
in front
has
of
it.
everyone.
All right, anybody wanna make a motion for?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Grand staff and web?
Okay. All right, so Holland, Michigan. Oh, I'm sorry. All in favor? Always forget that.
That's
All in
okay.
favor? Man, nobody's opposed.
Hey, we like the down-home village atmosphere. There you go. You're in the village.